It's been roughly around 3 years since we've witnessed the Conjuring debut for the first time back in 2013, and now James Wan has returned once again to not only instill fear into our hearts, but never allow us to sleep again with the Conjuring 2. Welcome to the Conjuring 2, the spoiler-filled review, in which case this video will contain lots of spooky spoilers, in which case, of course, if you guys don't want to know what happens, simply skip forward in the video, or just simply check out my spoiler-free review. But nevertheless, guys, you were warned. Now, I will have to say the Conjuring 2 is a definite masterpiece in comparison to horror sequels, because nowadays in our modern generation, horror films just don't seem to execute a very good sequel, but this film did an amazing job of telling a very good story, a very desperate story with amazing screenplay, amazing actors and actresses, putting on an amazing performance. Now, first things first, I want to say that there were certain things about this film, I mean, despite how good it was, that kind of bothered me, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But we get to see two separate events happening. Early in the beginning, we get to see the Amityville incident occur back in 1977 when Ed and Lorraine Warren were investigating the Amityville house, and we get to see Lorraine have somewhat of a vision. She was in the body of the man that killed his family back in 1977, and she got to relive those experiences through his vision, through what he did. And of course, she was terrified by that. She was petrified because she felt as if she was the one that murdered, you know, those children and his wife and stuff. So Lorraine pretty much was engulfed by this fear and this entity that was present within the house, in which case, of course, towards the very end of that particular scenario, we get to see, you know, Lorraine hanging by the stairs, and as she looks upon, you know, the staircase, she sees to be what it is, a little boy, and he's staring at her with like these cold, very cold eyes just glaring right at her. And of course, he makes a run for it as he runs down the stairs, and of course, Lorraine follows him, and while she's doing that, she's petrified, and in the real world, Ed's trying to wake her up. And while she's there, while she's witnessing herself trying to be woken up by Ed, she sees the door open, she sees the little boy just standing there, and the little boy goes in the basement, almost as if the little boy was trying to tell her something. But of course, as Lorraine went downstairs, she came across the entire family that had died, and they all pointed at like this object that was covered by a blanket or a sheet, and she removes the sheet, and of course, it's a mirror, very similar to the TV spots that we've had with The Conjuring and whatnot. So we get to see Lorraine there, she's staring in the mirror, and what appears to be a nun, a woman nun, appear right before her that was standing right behind her. Of course, Lorraine looks back twice, she's not there, and then the nun who appears right in front of her after she looks back attacks her by grabbing her by the throat. She slams her against the wall, and Lorraine is demanding to find out like who this is, what's your name, and the nun simply just, you know, glaringly, like just as she's staring at Lorraine, points towards, you know, a flurry of objects, and as these objects pretty much just get thrown into the walls and whatnot, we see a figure standing there, what appears to be a man, but we don't really know what's going on until the movie, you know, furthers itself. So we get to see that unfold, and we get to see Lorraine pretty much, you know, broken and shaken by this, because she saw this demonic nun point at somebody after she had asked what does it want, and of course the message relays towards the end of the film. But as we get to see that unfold, Lorraine was just shooken up by it, and she told Ed back when they were home that she doesn't want to go through this again. It really took a lot out of her, in which case in real life it did, and the story behind that was that the Amityville house affected the Warren family so much that it literally caused her to stop because it was that bad. And then we transition back into Enfield, and we see, you know, a lot of things happening with Janet, who was the main actress, the little girl portrayed in the film. And during the day, you know, she was all calm, she was with her sister, she got caught smoking, and her mom didn't really like that. So to make a very long story short, they went back upstairs, and you know, towards the night, everyone was getting ready for bed, everyone was settling in, and that's when things started getting very interesting, because Janet actually was playing with a homemade Ouija board that her and her sister had made, which was very interesting because, again, they were trying to find out, you know, why their father had left their family, when is dad coming back, and stuff like that. So they were asking the board questions, but the board never responded. I mean, nothing really happened. So what she decided to do was put the board under her bed, and that's when things started happening in the film that were really crazy. I mean, little by little, we get to see, you know, certain things play into effect. The fire truck that was coming in and out of the tent that was established by the little boy, we get to see, you know, banging on the door, like very loud banging occur. It was quite frightening, actually. So, you know, later on, we get to see that there was a spirit that used to live within the house, and I do believe his name was Bill Wilkinson, if I'm not mistaken. So this presence, this spirit, the spirit of this grumpy old man who had died in this chair due to a brain hemorrhage, was said to be, you know, haunting the house and whatnot, in which case we do see an effect happen with Janet. There were lots of doubters who, you know, pretty much came to the house saying that everything was a hoax, and the entire story, the entire structure of The Conjuring 2 was basically this family was being terrorized by this supposed spirit, and the people, you know, who reside in the outside, you know, were pretty much saying that, well, you know, this was all just an elaborate hoax to gain attention because it was a single mother raising 4 children and they wanted a better, you know, household and stuff. So there were lots of skepticism going on here, but we get to see Janet, and you know, as she heard banging come from the door, she opened up the door several times, in which case I don't advise anyone to do when you hear banging on your door. There were several things to where she felt as if her blankets were being pulled, you know, like she was just waking up sleepwalking and stuff, which was pretty amazing, because as she would fall asleep, she would wake up somewhere else, whether it's downstairs, whether it's, you know, in the kitchen or something, and she would experience these abnormal apparitions and things happening around her, such as the remote just magically disappearing and just reappearing right where the chair was, where the old man was said to have died at. And you know, while Ed and Lorraine Warren are home, they're unaware of what's going on. And in which case, Lorraine has somewhat of a little nap while her daughter is sitting there. She's playing with, you know, whatever she's playing with, her drawing. And as Lorraine is seemingly waking up, she sees that her daughter's missing, and she goes up in the hallway and she asks her daughter, is everything okay? And her daughter points down the hallway and she asks Lorraine, Mom, who is that? And then as Lorraine glances on over, we get to see the nun just standing there by the end of the corner of the hallway, and then she just quickly, like, you know, moves on ahead and goes into the, I guess you could say, like, investigation room. And prior to that, Ed actually had painted a picture of this demon, in which case he says that he sees visually and stuff, and everything from The Conjuring 1 actually ties into this, because I don't know if you guys remember or not, but in The Conjuring 1, there was an 8-day period in which Lorraine wasn't able to, you know, see or look at, you know, Ed the same, because she had like this premonition of his supposed death, and she didn't want to bring that upon him, in which case she locked herself away for about 8 days so she can go ahead and avoid him. But then we get to find out why as the movie pretty much progresses on forward. So she tells, you know, prior to, like, you know, them spotting the nun, she tells Ed that she had a premonition of his death, in which case we get to see that happen. So as the nun turns the corridor, Lorraine follows the nun inside, and we get to see the exact same picture that Ed had painted just on the wall, and we get to see like this abnormal, you know, occurrence happen where the lights are going off, and she actually turns on the light near the painting and stuff. So pretty much there was a lot of foreshadowing that had to do with the demon being the nun and stuff. So we get to see, you know, this demonic nun appear behind the image of the painting that, you know, Ed was, you know, drawing up and whatnot, and she attacked Lorraine. So this demonic nun they did not take a liking of Lorraine at all, and the ultimate goal here, in case you guys are wondering, well, why did the nun even, you know, just dwell upon their residence in the first place? Well, to make a very long story short, the demonic entity that was present around Lorraine, being the nun, of course, she wanted to ultimately kill off Ed. That was the ultimate goal from day one. That was the ultimate goal of this demon, was to kill off Ed Warren. So pretty much, you know, Lorraine tried to warn Ed of this premonition, and she told Ed, you know, listen, when I locked myself away for those 8 days back a couple of years ago, the reason why I did that was because I had a premonition of your death. And Ed was like, listen, you're not going to do this alone. I mean, God brought us here for a reason. I mean, there was lots of symbolism behind marriage, unity, working together, and in which case there were several occurrences going on within the Enfield home. And one of the priests comes to Ed and Lorraine's house, and he tells them, actually he first plays this audio clip of, you know, Janet speaking as an old man and whatnot. It's pretty diabolical. And you know, he asks them, well, what do you make of this? And Ed's like, well, it sounds like a senile old man. And he tells Ed right then and there, this is the voice of an 11-year-old girl, and I think their family's in danger. And of course, if you guys need an exorcism, if you guys need, you know, the church to get involved, we're gonna have to have solid proof here, and if it's fake, come back and, you know, act as if nothing happened. But if in fact this turns out to be real, then there's a family out there that desperately needs you. So they had no other choice. I mean, that's their whole shtick, you know, to help people. So they actually end up going to England, and they come across the family. And at first, you know, Ed doesn't, you know, hesitate but to challenge the spirit. He, you know, he presents himself to the spirit, and he asks the spirit, "Who are you? What do you want?" And the spirit asks him, you know, "My name is Bill Wilkinson. I've died here. I want to see my family," and whatnot. And everything seemed so strange until, of course, the ending, in which case everything made sense. But there are two figures in this film that I need you guys to pay attention to. One of them being Bill Wilkinson, which was the spirit of the elderly man that was attacking Janet, and then there was the demonic nun. There were two of them. Just like in the Conjuring 1, we had Bathsheba, the farm witch, and we had Annabelle. So in this film, we had, you know, the nun, and we had Bill. And of course, the ultimate story here, the ultimate trickery was the demonic nun, which was really a demon, was using the spirit of Bill Wilkinson to get to Janet in order for her to possess Janet and to take control of her, and to also ultimately lead the Warrens to coming there so she can go ahead and kill Ed. In which case, that was the ultimate goal towards the end of the film, because we get to see, you know, like just the nun or this demon, you know, lure the Warrens back in the house, but also separating them. In which case, we get to see Ed inside of the house while Janet was being possessed by himself. All he had was the cross. He was trying to figure out what was going on. Now, I will say, the things that I did not like about this film was the crooked man. Now, some of you guys might be wondering, well, what's the crooked man? I don't want to give away too much, but the crooked man was something that the little boy was using. It was a device, somewhat of a toy, and the crooked man was like a song, very similar to that like little like box, that little music box that we saw in the Conjuring 1, except this one actually had words. And so the crooked man came to life in this film, and that was kind of cheesy if you ask me. I mean, he had like an umbrella, he had a hat, he was like 8 feet tall. It was really crappy, and the CGI was crappy on that, in my opinion, of course. So if there was anything that I did not like about the film, it would have to be that, because I felt as if it was a cheap cop-out. I felt as if it wasn't necessarily needed, because the ultimate goal, the ultimate story was being told here, because it was Ed and Lorraine Warren having to work together to save this family and prove to everyone that this wasn't a hoax, because there was a particular scene to where we get to see Janet tossing and turning everything around and throwing dishes and whatnot, because there was a skeptic amongst the media that was there, and the skeptic was telling Ed and Lorraine Warren, "Look, I have proof that this is all fake." And after Ed and Lorraine Warren saw it, they were like, "Wow, you know, we can't believe it." So they told the mother, "Listen, we can't help you. You know, even if we wanted to, our 3-day trip is over, and the church wants us back." And that kind of broke the mother, because she really felt as if this was real, and she knew this was real, and everyone else was calling her a liar. So can you imagine being put in her shoes? Everyone's calling you a liar, everyone's calling you, you know, deceitful and stuff. So Ed and Lorraine Warren are about to get on the train and go home, until Ed drops these 2 tapes, and he plays the tapes, and he realizes that there's a message behind the tapes, that being that the old man that was speaking through Janet was actually saying something along the lines of, it won't let go of me, I'm being used, get out. So he relayed the message in a way, and it was actually something that he connected, and he realized that towards the very end, this demon wanted, you know, both of them to get out, but at the same time return, because it wanted the possession of Janet. But of course, as seen in the beginning of the film, the demonic entity wanted to kill off Ed. And what's crazy about this, and I'm getting goosebumps talking about it right now, was the fact that towards the very end of the film, the same rocking chair, the same chair in which the old man had died, in which case Bill, when he died with a brain hemorrhage back in 2003, the mother of the children actually died in that exact same chair 40 years later. So that is very, very spooky, because what are the odds of this elderly man dying in the exact same spot, in the exact same position, in the exact same chair as the mother did 40 years later, dying in the exact same spot, in the exact same chair, in the exact same position? So, and that was actually like a real life occurrence. So towards the end, we get to see Lorraine. She's trying to get to Ed, because Ed was being, he was blinded, you know, momentarily by hot gas, by hot steam. that came from the demon, because the demon was pretty much messing with the pipes, and we get to see like an outburst of like steam hit, you know, Ed's eyes, and he couldn't see, like he was momentarily blinded, and he had to go based off of, you know, blurry vision and just hearing stuff. And it really got to him because Janet wanted to jump out of the window via possession, and of course Ed wanted to find out where she was in the house and save her from that. So it was a crazy story, and you know, Lorraine pieced together what the demon wanted, in which case early in the beginning of the film, when she asked what its name was, it didn't want to give its name away, but as we transition towards the very end, we get to see Lorraine, you know, just scratch down like these letters in her Bible, and she realized that those letters that she was, you know, marking down in her Bible were actually the name of the demon. So towards the very end, she spots that, you know, Ed is hanging on by a curtain, you know, out of a window, trying to save you know, an unconscious Janet from falling off of the second floor window onto a spike, in which case she would have been impaled if that were to happen. So what the demon wanted ultimately was to impale both Ed and, you know, Janet. And of course, when Lorraine walked in, she spotted the nun right away, and she cursed it, and, you know, she was saying, in the name of Christ, in the name of Jesus, she said the demon's name, and she says, I cast you back to hell and stuff. It was pretty intense stuff. So that seemed very cliche. It seemed very cliche how it happened, because she just happened to go right up in the room upstairs, and the demon threw Lorraine against the wall. But even while that happened, all she pretty much did was, you know, say its name, and she condemned it back to hell, and that was it. So the ending was over exaggerated in comparison to the real life story, because there were certain things that were added onto this to make the film that much more you know, creepy and scarier and stuff like that. But all in all, everything about this film screamed superiority over anything else. Now, in case you guys are wondering, The Conjuring 1 versus The Conjuring 2, I would like to know from you guys, which film did you guys like more? Did you guys like part 1 more, or did you guys like part 2 more? Because all in all, guys, I would have to say that this film, this movie in particular, had a very dark tone to it, and I would have to prefer this film over anything else. Of course, even towards the very end, which there was a lot of symbolism with, we get to see Ed. He puts the little crooked man, you know, music box next to the Conjuring 1 box, which was pretty cool, because visually we get to see the little music box from the Conjuring 1, that little box where you would open and have to stare in the mirror until the music stops. We had that box, and right next to it we had the Conjuring 2 music Crooked Man box, which is pretty cool. So we have both movies side by side, and in the background we get to see Annabelle, and Annabelle is actually sealed away in the background. She's sealed inside of the cage, the box. And so what I'm predicting here, and again, this is just prediction, guys, that they're going to make another Conjuring film probably 2 to 3 years from now, because James Wan's going to go work on, you know, Aquaman and stuff like that. But this film definitely deserves somewhat of a sequel. Now, some people might say, well, they can't really make a third movie because they can't do the Amityville Horror due to the fact that there is another Amityville movie coming out, in which case I believe that sucks, because James Wan ought to do that and just recreate that into a Conjuring movie. But if they're not going to do the Amityville concept, then they can easily do The Haunting in Connecticut, or they can do the Doll of Shadows, which is pretty intense case in and of itself as well. But that all depends on the direction of this movie. I really hope that this movie it becomes a box office hit, because the way this movie was portrayed, the way this movie looked, it was amazing. So I want to know from you guys, what are your overall thoughts on The Conjuring 2? Did you guys like it? Did you guys hate it? What were some things that you would change about the film? And do you guys think that there's going to be a part 3 in the future? Again, I would have to say that everything about this film was great, except for the Crooked Man depiction, where he came out and he was like trying to attack everyone and stuff. The old man was being used as a pawn, so his spirit was a pawn. The Crooked Man spirit was a pawn. Everything was being used as a pawn by this demonic nun. So I mean, ultimately enough, you actually get to follow up with the story, because The ultimate goal here, again, was to kill off Ed and to possess Janet. And there was lots of imagery with, you know, Christian-based, you know, religious icons and items and stuff, which was pretty cool in and of itself if you're religious. So pretty amazing film, guys. Let me know your overall thoughts down below. If you guys loved the film, if you guys hated the film. Thank you all for watching. Once again, if you guys are horror fans, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, that way you guys don't miss all the latest news, information, and updates. If you guys enjoyed the movie, if you guys enjoyed the review, don't forget to smash that like button, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think. Did you guys like the first movie or the second movie? Let me know down below, guys. Thank you all for watching once again, and I'll be seeing you all in the next update. Take it easy, guys. Peace.